how we do things. And I think I'm going to be committed. I mean, during this campaign, I'm going to be committed to getting out and around the city and really talking to people from all across the city. And that's how I would approach my mayoral administration. It would be really getting out of City Hall, getting out into the neighborhoods, being really accessible, being part of the community, and really, being tuned into and hearing the concerns and issues that people care about. And then trying to figure out a way, how do we find solutions together to try to solve those problems?
Well, some people see you as clear as kind of appointed successor. Is that, what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, I've obviously served in city government for about 5 years and served most directly with the mayor this last year as council president. But again, I think if people look at my record, they know that I've been my own independent person. I've had my own portfolio of issues that I've worked on pretty extensively. I've led on very specific issues. And I feel like I've created my own record that people can look at and really distinguish me in my leadership style and the way that I would approach the job of mayor. And that's one of my things I'll be talking about during the campaign.
Can you give any specific examples of places where you have disagreed with the mayor, either on topics or on process and policy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think obviously, one of the big ones is the landfill issue and how that process was handled, and I put forward legislation to try to change that process because I felt like it was kind of at loggerheads and it wasn't being very productive, and that legislation didn't pass. And then we kind of reached this other impasse where there was no movement from the mayor, no movement from the Board of Public Works, and so again, I felt like I had to step in and try to move the process forward so we could really face the issues that we needed to deal with on that one. And again, as council president, I meet very often with the mayor to put together the agenda for the city council, and I've never been shy about expressing my disagreements on issues, about the agenda, about issues that need to come forward. And I think that's just part of the process between the legislative and the executive branch.
How would you describe your working relationship with Gene Tacey and Angela Glassman, two city councilors who you often find yourself on the opposite side of the voting block with?
It's interesting because I know that there's this public persona that people try to create about what they see on the council floor and that sort of stuff. But I've tried from the day I became council president to reach out to everybody on the council, to communicate with everybody on the council. One of the first things I did as council president was put together a special workshop for all the new councilors so we could get together and really talk about the legislative process and how we needed to work together as a team and how we needed to deal with issues that were perceived around the mayor and how she ran meetings and things like that. So, Councilor Tacey and I have co-sponsored legislation together. Councilor Plassman and I have co-sponsored legislation together. We have an ordinance that's still pending regarding unsolicited publications. So, again, we have our disagreements. That's part of the democratic process. That's part of government. But my approach has always been to, at the end of one issue, to try to work with people on the next one. And again, that'll be my approach as mayor. I think that's the only way we can function in a representative democracy.
Do you have any indications of support from any organized groups that have supported Higgins?
Really, this is really too early. I mean, I've really just been. This has all been kind of a quick process. The mayor made her announcement 2 weeks ago, and now I'm making my announcement. And so, now will be the time that I'll be, reaching out to people all across the community looking for their support.
Are you at all concerned that largely having a little bit of a head start makes it tougher for you to do?
Again, I think, I'm sort of I'm a relative newcomer in terms of my time in city government. He's been in city government 3 times as long as I have, and he's obviously run for citywide office many more times. This will only be my 2nd time running citywide. So, obviously I feel like I, will have to, make up a little ground there in that sense. But I also feel like people also look at what you've done in the time you've been in office. So I think what I need to do is talk about my record of accomplishment in the relatively short time that I've been involved in city government. And I think that's the way that I'm going to approach this. Again, I don't really see this, the way I've always approached any election that I've ever run for is not me against somebody else, or it's always been about we're basically applying for a job. We're applying to the voters to be selected for whether it's the Ward 4 councilor, at-large councilor, or in this case, the Mayor of Northampton. And so I really feel like what I need to do in a campaign is go out, listen to people, talk to people about my record, about my accomplishments, about my vision, and then let them make the decision between the various candidates. And that's going to be my approach. I'm going to really try to be positive and be forward-looking about where I want to take this city, and that's going to be my approach throughout the whole campaign.
Does your connection to the current administration, the current mayor, is it an advantage or a disadvantage in the sense that this guy largely is probably positioned himself as an anti-incumbent? You think does that hurt you?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a member of this administration. I'm David Narkewicz. I was elected city councilor at large. I'm the city council president. And there's, the mayor is the mayor. She was elected in her own right. And I don't really see that it's any different than when he was council president or when he was councilor at large. I don't really understand the question. Again, I feel like I'm my own person. I've really been very active as a counselor, as a representative, and have really established my own record of accomplishment that's pretty separate and distinct from the administration.
What do you see as the biggest challenges and issues facing city government in the coming years?
Well, obviously the budget. I mean, everything we talk about always comes back to funding. And we do have sort of this structural problem that we've been facing year after year after year in terms of rising costs of healthcare and other fixed costs that the city has to pay for every year. The fact that state aid and other forms of aid and revenue have been pretty stagnant. So that's been the challenge: is how do we do the things that people expect, the city services they expect, the great schools that they expect, plowing the roads, making sure they have adequate fire and police protection, with a shrinking budget. So I think that's going to be the big challenge. And I think one of the things I talked about was economic development, and I think that's really a key because we don't have there's not a lot of new revenue sources. So one of the ways we do it is by growing our own commercial base and trying to keep businesses in Northampton, try to look at the few areas where we do have room for development, and really try to attract new businesses and new entrepreneurs. I think Northampton is such an ideal location. We have an incredibly educated workforce. We have just beautiful place to live, wonderful amenities, and so one of my jobs as mayor will be to really sort of be salesman in chief, to really go out there and try to attract business, because again, you expand the commercial tax base. That's what you base your levy on every year, and it also, by increasing the commercial side of things, you're also lowering people's residential tax rates because you're kind of spreading that burden out a little more evenly.
Candidates have been talking about that for the last dozen years. Do you think you have a specific idea that'll work?
I think though, I think I've been involved. I've been pretty heavily involved as the Ward 4 councilor, and then as city council president on the Village Hill project. We've done a lot of work around trying to make that site a place where we can attract development. I do think the decision of Cole Morgan to stay in Northampton, to expand and add more jobs in Northampton, was a really key economic development achievement. I mean, they're a long-standing company, a union company.
Pennies, right?
No, that was actually you have to talk to them about that, but that was a contract change, and I think the net result is there are going to be more jobs and good-paying jobs staying in Northampton. And there's still more room for attracting companies in that area, and I think we're going to focus on that. I think the whole discussion around King Street is another important one. We've got some sites down there that I think are poised to really get moving, and we can try to attract some businesses there. And then we also have a lot of just entrepreneurs here in town that are doing some really cool internet businesses and things like that. We've got a great arts community, a very vibrant arts and music community. That's another thing, our tourism. So I think there's a lot of exciting things happening. The talk of rail coming to Northampton, I think, is going to be a real boon, and certainly going to really increase our transportation capacity and the way that we move people up and down the valley. So I'm an optimist. And I think that you know, we can really move this great city forward, and that's going to be one of the themes of my campaign.
You mentioned a lot of general issues there, and those are all important. Mayors tend to at times have, I don't know, they're known for certain things. Dave Santi is known for the revitalization of downtown. This current mayor is known for trying to expand affordable housing and go after the homeless issue. Is there one particular issue you are most interested in?
Well, let's see. I mean, well, certainly I ticked off a few of them when I just spoke. I mean, I do think that I think some of the things that I talked about in terms of you know, the economic development piece, I think is important because it really ties back into everything else. The education piece, in terms of how do we maintain quality public schools, in terms of the budget piece, trying to provide the quality services. I'm also really proud of our community in terms of its approach to the environment and sort of the ethic about being a green community, and I've been a big part of that, particularly in my role in transportation issues and really trying to be forward-thinking about promoting cycling and promoting walking and the incredible bike trail network we have. So I really think I think if I can continue to focus on sort of the combination of sort of eco-development, but also with that green ethic and how we keep Northampton green, I think that's really something that sets us apart and what makes us unique, and I think what makes this an attractive place for people to come and start businesses and start families and go to school and live here.
There's been a lot of divisions in this city in the recent years, especially the Hampton-Oho divide. Can you unify this city as mayor?
Well, that's going to be my goal. I mean, that's going to be my goal. You know, I was born and raised here in the area. I grew up in Western Mass. And I've tried during my time living in the community to really be involved in all facets of the community. And I think the job of mayor is to be the mayor for the whole city. And that's going to be my approach. And I'm going to work hard every day to be the mayor for the entire city and get out there and be, you know, what you mentioned past mayors. I mean, Dave Santi was famous for being a walking mayor. Well, you know, I'm going to be the walking and biking and any other way that I can get around the city mayor. I really want to be out there in the community, whether it's watching my kids at a softball or soccer game or going to neighborhood meetings or holding office hours around the city. I mean, I think that's, I want to be out there and be accessible, and that's going to be my goal as mayor.
David, you've been a leader in the move to amend the city's charter. What changes specifically would you like to see in the structure of city government?
Well, yes, I actually, during the last term, I introduced legislation to amend our ordinances to create a 10-year charter review body, which then it turned out I got elected council president and then appointed that body. And so they have just finished their work, and they're going to be coming back to the city council, I think at our next meeting in April, to make a presentation. I think really the key thing is we really have an old, outdated charter that's not very accessible to people. It's not very user-friendly and easy to read. So that's one of our big challenges, is just to kind of clean it up and put it in more modern language and have it be more organized. But there are some structural issues that people have talked about. You know, the division of power between the executive and the legislative branch. People have talked about terms of office. People have talked about, you know, nomination, how many signatures you need on nomination papers. And so I think there's been a lot of issues raised, but making a charter change is a pretty significant thing. And so I think we're going to really have to get a lot of buy-in and feedback from the community, and we're probably going to have to go out on the ballot, because that's usually what's required when you make big structural changes like that. So there have been these movements to change the charter over time. They haven't always been successful, but I'm certainly, you know, as somebody who's been at the start of this conversation and tried to really foster it, you know, I'm certainly going to do what I can, both as city council president and as the mayor, to advance the conversation and make sure that our charter, which is really our foundation document, it's sort of our constitution, if you will, that, you know, that it's clear and easy to access for people so they understand how their government works.